Namaste, everyone. My name is Preity Upala, and welcome to Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochannek. Now, I have a very, very special episode for you this afternoon. It is a very, very exclusive interview with the one and only Norman Kochannek about a topic that he is very passionate about. This is very near and dear to him. Of course, Norman loves cricket and he's visited cricket stadiums around the world. He's a very much a global citizen when it comes to cricket. But I think there's a part of the world that he's truly he feels home, and I think he's genuinely very, very um, passionate about this part of the world, and of course, that is the Caribbean. So I think we're going to have a great conversation, finding out more about his adventures because it seems like he's had many, and it started about a decade ago, and some sort of mind-blowing stories of what he's gone through and experiences. So let's take it away. Without further ado, I give you Mr. Norman Kochannek.
Thank you, Pretty. This is a privilege for me to be able to talk to you and to my viewers and the general public that will see this video, because I have a lot to talk about. Now, I hope it doesn't bore you. I don't think it will. I have been around the world to various sporting venues, obviously. I have a special love for India and Sri Lanka, having been married to a Sri Lankan, having many, many good friends in India and in Indians around the world. There's certainly my passion, my areas that I love to go to, and I've been to more than 20 times. But there was one particular trip that impacted me greatly, not only because of the islands of the Caribbean, but the people that I met. In fact, more so the way it happened and the unlikeliness of it happening. I didn't think most of this would transpire. I had no idea as to really who I was going to meet, where I was going to meet, where I was going to be taken. I've been very privileged with many countries like Sri Lanka, having been married to someone there, taken around and treated well. That's not necessarily unusual. But something about this trip to the West Indies absolutely blew me away. Now, let me start. I was taking cricket tours to Sri Lanka most years for a number of years leading up to 2009-10. I was doing them every year to Sri Lanka and taking large groups away, based in Brisbane and Morton Cricket Club with a guy called Bubba Soja and many other people were going on many tours. The cricket teams going away. It was something that I loved doing. But I had done a lot of Sri Lanka and I wanted to try something new. And I had a lot of contacts in Sri Lanka and other parts of the world, but not that many in the West Indies. And basically, I spoke to several people that I knew, and they said, look, why don't you do the simple thing and go straight to the West Indies cricket board? So I made a simple set of emails and phone calls to the West Indies cricket board, to basically no one. I reached a secretary, virtually a secretary called Jewel Maynard. Her name was, I'll never forget the name. Jewel Maynard rings a strong bell in my head. Now, what Jewel did was she said, Norman, I could tell you all about people to talk to and everything, but the first person you talk to, and you will email, I'll give you all his details, his phone number, whatever, is a guy called Shipwreck. Yes, Shipwreck. So I've been advised by Jewel Maynard from the West Indies Cricket Board to get in contact with a person called Shipwreck. I immediately thought, Shipwreck, the Caribbean is full of islands. I'm not about to be in good contact with someone who's nicknamed Shipwreck. I hope that's not how he takes care of his so-called guests. Anyway, so Shipwreck. I had, at the time, I was married to a Sri Lankan, and we would often go to Florida because her family was in Florida, therefore my family. So we would go to Florida. So we booked to go 2009, wrote all those emails to the West Indies Cricket Board. I attempted to contact Shipwreck, no answer to his emails, no answer to his phone calls. I thought the guy didn't exist. He did have a name, by the way. It was Stanfield Joseph, but I didn't really know that. I just knew Shipwreck. So anyway, so Shipwreck was there. I did make a strange phone call to him. I had gone to Florida and I'd made a call and I heard what sounded like a nightclub. And I think, oh my gosh. And he was rather, difficult to understand. It was noisy. He said, no worries, we should come. So I said, righto. So I wrote to him and we got that contact. I also wrote to a person in St. Lucia called Roland Cox and a person in Barbados called Gregory Willock. Really, I didn't know much about any of them at all, other than who they were. I wrote the emails and basically hoped like hell there was someone going to be there to meet me. So I was in Kissimmee near Orlando. That's where I was staying. And I decided to fly out. My first flight was to Antigua. So over the top of VC Bird International Airport, I land a magnificent island, beautiful so-called beaches and what have you. I land there and not knowing what to expect, knowing there was a fellow called Shipwreck potentially going to be there. I start to walk through customs, and the first person I met was a relatively young lady, and she said she didn't even have to know anything about me. She said, "Oh, you're Norman Kochannek. My name is." In fact, I'm going to remember her name. I'm not going to forget her name because I promised I would never do that. Her name was Denise. That is Shipwreck's wife, Denise. Now, Denise welcomes me. She was in charge of customs, would you believe? So the perfect start. So she's in charge of customs. She takes me through, not even checking a damn thing. I go straight in, and there's this really, I'll call it a relatively old Jeep out the front of the airport. And there's a man in the car. And I thought, well, who's this? Having met Denise, I assumed it was Shipwreck. Yes, it certainly was. Shipwreck existed, Stanfield Joseph, and he was there. I must admit, I had difficulty understanding him at first. He spoke very fast, and I was too excited to worry about it. So whenever he laughed, I laughed. So we would laugh away. I'm in this Jeep, jerking along the street. We're going, it's beautiful. Everybody, from the moment I met Denise, even before, every single person was super duper chilled. No problems, Norman. No problem. Their tone of voice just slowed down. I began to slow down. I almost fell asleep. That was so pleasant.
Wow.
Anyway, we got in the car with Shipwreck. We headed to a building in the town of St. Lucia, the main town, not that far from, relatively close to the airport. We did pass a ground called the Sticky Wicket. Right next to the actual airport was a cricket ground. Now, the story of that cricket ground called Sticky Wicket was quite a phenomenal one. There was a man called Stanfield who ended up being, unfortunately, a con man, and he ran all these scams, Ponzi schemes, went to America to Antigua, and basically wanted to have a big competition where they played a game against the best English side, I think it was, and the winner take all was a $20 million purse. Some outrageously exciting things that he was trying to organise. Anyway, so the ground was called Sticky Wicket, built right next to the airport. It was this big colossus of a building, like a Roman building that he had built, and that ground was also called Stanford grounds, but also Sticky Wicket. And yeah, that's a story in itself. We passed that. We went into the town. We went to the Ministry of Sports office. We went up these we didn't go through the front door, which was strange. What appeared to be a back staircase. Shipwreck, and I'll remind you many times when I'm talking, Shipwreck the whole time had this old, what looked like a Nokia phone, this big brick near his ear, and he was constantly on the phone to someone, which initially annoyed me because I thought, was he ever going to get off the phone? So we got up the stairs. We're at the Minister of Sports, these back stairs that I'm struggling to get up. I was pretty fit though, but I went, sat there, and there's two gentlemen. One gentleman and another gentleman. His name was Mervyn.
Mm-hmm.
And his name happened to be Mervyn. And then I was introduced by Shipwreck as Mervyn Richards. My ears pricked up. Richards. Wow, that's a famous name. This is Antigua, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, Norman, my name's Mervyn Richards. I'm actually the younger brother of Sir Vivian Richards, or Vivian Richards. 1 year younger. He looked the goods. He was a lovely, well-dressed man. So he sat me down. They were talking a business meeting. I sort of kind of interrupted. And I'm very impressed. I think, oh, wow, I just met Viv Richards' brother, Mervyn. How exciting. I want to ask him all these questions. Really, really into meeting him. You can imagine how into you're meeting him. But Shipwreck's tapping me on the shoulder going, with his mobile, he's going, come on. I'm going, no. Where am I going? No. Come, you're going. And I said, and I'm annoyed. I think I've just sat down with Merv. I'm excited. I meet Merv Richards. I can ask him all the questions about Viv, blah, how unreal. But no, Shipwreck was going with his phone. Come on, let's go. So we went back down the stairs. We were there for 5 minutes. We went back down the stairs. We got back into his Jeep, headed to a golf course. And there's in the car with him in the golf course, there's a golf buggy in the distance. We parked next to the golf buggy. Who gets out of the golf buggy? Who do you think gets out of the golf buggy?
Vivian Richards.
So Vivian Richards. So I've been in Antigua for half an hour. I've just met Shipwreck's wife, Shipwreck, up the stairs and met Mervyn. And here I'm in a golf course with Vivian Richards in complete awe. I was in complete awe. I thought, I can't believe this. I've just landed in the damn country and I'm already meeting Viv Richards. I thought this was just gold. So Viv was extremely cool. We had a great chat. He was in no rush. I was certainly in no rush. even Shipwreck wasn't in any rush, which was interesting. So we're shaking away on photographs, and I was just goo goo gaga. I was just gobsmacked. Basically, in my childhood, if there's ever a cricket player I wanted to meet or see and be in the flesh, would be Viv Richards, and it was him. So can you imagine this? I'm in the country for less than an hour and I met Viv. Anyway, so Shipwreck gave me a little bit of extra time, I felt, and I thought that was very nice of him. And then Viv was heading off to play a game of golf, and we said goodbye, and he said, "You'll see me later," etc., etc. And I'm in absolute awe. Now Shipwreck has gone from being somewhat annoying to being somewhat like God. Okay, so Shipwreck was, oh my gosh. So Shipwreck's, again, mobile phone to his ear, come on, after a bit more time, into the car. We go into the main township. A white Land Cruiser pulls up, and there's what appears to be an elderly man and woman in the car. And I'm there, and I'm not sure what's going on. Shipwreck walks towards the car, and he mumbles something like, "Oh, Norman, meet Andy." And I looked at the window. It's not just, we've just met Viv Richards, but now I've met Andy Roberts. Now, Andy Roberts is the first international cricketer from Antigua, opening bowler, one of the 4 top bowlers in the world, and at that time, a World Cup champion, etc., etc. So I'm now meeting Andy Roberts, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this. I've just met Viv after being Merv. I've met Andy Roberts. Andy's cool as a cucumber. His wife's in the car. They're just going. They've come back from fishing. They're really, you have no idea how cool and relaxed and how much time they appear to have. The only one that didn't seem to have time was Shipwreck, because he was busily trying to organise what he was doing, as you'll see. So anyway, I'm there meeting Andy Roberts. I'm, again, extremely excited. Want to have a good chat to him. He's in the car. He's going shopping in the shopping. Then good old Shipwreck goes on to tap me on the shoulder once again. This time he didn't ask me to go somewhere. He just shoved the mobile phone, his brick, in my ear, and I'm talking. I'm saying, "Hi, this is Norman." I go, "Oh, Norman, this is Curtly Ambrose. I'm actually at the casino here now, warming up with my band Spirited and Richard Richardson, another Western player. Would you like to come and meet us tonight? Watch us play at the casino. I think it's called and I'm going to get the name right. It's got a certain name, the King's Casino in Antigua." So I've been invited to go and watch Curtly and Richie Richardson and the band Spirited play at the casino. I'm just thinking, I'm just realising I'm speaking to Curtly Ambrose. Andy Roberts is in front of me. I've just met Viv Richards. This is all panning out within a matter of what is now an hour and a half. Is it boring too?
No, I love it.
Okay, all right. So anyway, that's what started the whole trip. And that moment, Shipwreck, I had booked a hotel room myself. But Shipwreck said, no, you're not staying there. And I'm going, but I like the hotel. I checked it out. I liked it. And it was Sandals, which is a well-known resort.
It's amazing.
It's a very famous resort. Okay. Then he said, no, we're going somewhere else. So he took me in his car. And I'm not annoyed, but I'm just going with it. That stage, I was almost, thinking about who I just met. So we rocked up.
Damn, you're going to go from the Sandals to God knows where.
Exactly. So we went further. It was a little bit further away, not too, but a bit further away. Tranquility Bay was one of the locations. And we stopped at a place which was called Jolly Beach Resort. It was a white building. It was nice, but it wasn't too over the top. I walked in there, and I got a small queue. There's one person in front of me with a lady and me behind, and Shipwreck's gone to the side. So he's telling me to check in. Anyway, the guy in front of me turns around and starts to talk to me. Very fit man, very nice looking lady. And we're talking. And I said, "Oh, I'm from Australia." He goes, "Oh, really?" He was showing incredible interest in what I was doing. The whole time, Shipwreck's standing on the side there laughing his head off. And I'm going, "Why are you laughing, Shipwreck? Do you know who you're talking to, Mum?" I said, "No, I don't know. It's a young, good-looking man." It was Darren Sammy, who was a future West Indian captain. Yes. Who's standing in front of me. And he was with his wife-to-be. In fact, Cathy was next to him. They were both coming off their wedding. They were coming to have their honeymoon at Jolly Beach, effectively. So they were going to have another ceremony there as well. But anyway, so I met him, and that's just ridiculous. So I'm there in the front counters, having met already Viv, Andy, Curtly by phone, and then I meet Darren. This is all within 2 hours of being in the country. Phenomenal. So anyway, Jolly Beach, and I'll show photos to the viewers and to you. I think I've already shown you. It is probably, in my opinion, the best beach in the world. And I've been to hundreds, and I tell you what, something about the sand the velvet nature of the water, again, the chilled, relaxed feeling of Antigua, all culminates in Jolly Beach.
Wow.
Okay, that's the epicenter. It is so relaxed. It is super relaxed. I'm thinking, I cannot believe this. So anyway, I spent a bit of time there. The whole time, Shipwreck's waiting at the front. So I'm checking in. He doesn't care. He's got all time of the day. His job, by the way, we'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, so I'm there. I get freshened up. I look at the back. There's a cricket ground attached to the resort, which of course I
Wow.
like. So they actually they walk up. You sit on the banana chairs, go into a beautiful beach, and around the back there's a cricket ground, which is quite incredible. So anyway, I go in with Shipwrecks for all the time in the world. We mosey on through town. We just happen to stop at two places just for a minute. Again, this back street. I don't know where he's taking me. We knock on a door. There's a little shop window, and out comes another cricketer, Ridley Jacobs, the wicketkeeper at Western. I meet him. Then further down the road, just sitting on the side of the rock, and I think that was staged, but was Dave Joseph, another West Indian player. And it's just one West Indian player after another. Can you imagine that? The dream of a person to meet all these people and walk around.
On the first day?
All within hours, actually.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then anyway, it became nightfall, which was just beautiful. We went to this casino. Sure enough, the band warming up is a 6'8" Curtly Ambrose on guitar. Richie
I
Richardson,
didn't know he played. That's amazing.
Yeah, he's quite a cool little guitar, or big guitarist, I should say. And he had a band of a couple of women and a couple of guys singing, and there was Richie Richardson on the drums. So I'm thinking, I can't believe this. So I'm there. In comes Merv. Of course, Mervyn Richards come back to say hello. Shipwreck's there. Got Curtly playing the guitar. You got Richardson playing the drums. I thought, this is just ridiculous. It was just a dream. And they were having a great time, a magnificent night. So that's within, I arrived in the afternoon. So that was within less than half a day. I had that sort of beginning. Can you imagine that? I don't think anyone in their wildest dreams would ever imagine, unless they're Imran Khan, who's having that at the moment in Sri Lanka. Imran Khan from Pakistan is arriving in Sri Lanka. He's meeting all the Sri Lankan cricketers. A bit different. But for little humble old Norman, here I am meeting legends of cricket. The best thing about this story, and I haven't finished, of course, is that the majority of people that I've talked about, I'm still in regular contact with. As you know, Mervyn Richards is a great example. They are friends for life. They are the most decent, the most honest, the most God-fearing people I think I've ever met. Wow. They are genuine. They've got time for you. They'll listen to you. They'll talk to you. If anything out of this video that we should do today doesn't inspire the majority of India and the world to make an effort to go to those countries with enough planning, and it's enough transport to get there. Once you're there, you will feel like you're in paradise. And I mean that sincerely. There's no doubt about that. Okay, I'm going to repeat that a few times because it's true.
Wow.
And I don't want anyone to forget that, how good it is, a place. Okay, so that night we carried on a little bit late, a few drinks were had, I was a little bit tipsy. and you know, the only bad thing that happened so far, there's one bad thing, is when the singers, boys and girls, men and women stopped, they went and had a break. Curtly had his guitar and he seemed to be very keen on having a sing.
Mm.
And I'll tell you, that was a rather excruciating few minutes. We had to listen to a song. His guitar work was fantastic. He's singing, I think he better stick to bowling. I think maybe that was my only word. It was a little bit difficult. But that's, of course, we're not going to tell Curtly that, are we? We won't tell him that. He won't watch the show, of course. Let's hope. In fact, he probably will be watching it once Mervyn tells him what's going on.
Show. We want him to be on the show.
Sorry, Curtly, but I wasn't as impressed with your singing as your guitar work, I must say. Anyway, so that was the first half a day in the bloody country.
Wow.
Antigua, of course, Antigua is set in the West Indies. It's in fact called Antigua and Barbuda. So there are two islands, Antigua and Barbuda. Barbuda is well known for its amazing pink beaches, to be honest with you. Fantastic.
Wow.
They're literally as pink as you can get. So Manu John said, we are bored, Normie, sing a song. I'm not going to be singing a song, Manu.
No. You're so cute.
And Artria Pathra sounds as genuine as Seppo's. Well, I'm afraid this story is, I couldn't be more true. And I'll support this with a series of photos which
Oh,
I didn't put
I'm
on before
sure.
my discussion, which will prove everything, guys. So you can disbelieve me as much as you want. You have got, and I think you would have worked it out by now, you've got the most unbiased person you'll ever get. This story is as genuine as you can get. So please mind my comments that I'm getting, but I'm not going to take notice of them because I know what's true and I'm going to prove it to you. So I don't really need to worry about those sort of comments. Very genuine indeed. Okay. In fact, if you don't think I'm genuine, you've got a problem. Okay. So the next day, again, Shipwreck picked me up. We went around. We went to an old, like a house, a weatherboard house. There were a lot of people at the front. I just assumed it was a doctor's surgery or dental surgery. I didn't really look at the boards. Although I did see a photograph of Barack Obama in there, which was a bit unusual. In 2010, I'm not sure what Barack Obama was doing. He was obviously politically active. He wasn't, was he? I'm not sure. Anyway, then I see a picture of another man on the wall as well, rather large man. I go behind, I'm sitting there like a waiting room. And then Shipwreck walks me around the back and I see next to a man who's got an office. And it happens to be the Honourable Baldwin Spencer, who just happened to be the Prime Minister of Antigua.
Oh, wow.
So this Shipwreck, as
it's everyone.
Shipwreck knew everybody, from the Prime Minister to the bellhop to the most famous cricketer to the general manager of this or the janitor of that. He knew everybody, and everybody on that island knew Shipwreck. Everybody. So he knew everybody, and he just had this ability. He's such a lovable bloke. So I'm there having a bit of a natter with the so-called Prime Minister of the country, and I think this is just incredible. Anyway, that's how the day went. I think then I went back and I went to the town and I met a very famous guy called Gravy. Now, if you know about cricket, there was an actual calypso band called Chicky and Gravy would be performing for over 10 years on the side of the ground with the calypso drums, which we've all heard them. But he used to do more. He used to dress up as a drag queen, get married, do all these absolutely nutty things, and it used to entertain the crowd endlessly. It became a legendary person called Gravy. I met him as well, again through Shipwreck. I also then was given the opportunity to speak on radio, and I was able to talk about what I was doing in the country, and it just seemed to be everything that I could possibly imagine happened. So I was there for a couple of days. I had to go to St. Lucia and to Barbados as well.
Wow.
But I thought I'd just take a day trip. So I didn't fully say goodbye to Shipwreck. I was just going. It was a Sunday, and I wanted to do a day trip. It was a small flight that took me to an island called Montserrat. Have you heard of Montserrat?
Yes, I have. French.
Sorry.
It's French, right?
No, it has French definitely on the land, but it's actually a British protectorate. So they have an actual chief minister there who abides to British law, so to speak. Wow. So it's a sovereignty. But there were definitely. It's interesting you said it because the name Montserrat for starters, and there's also another name. I think there's a certain volcano that was there. I've something that I don't remember readily, but I've got it here. It was actually called Soufrières Hills Volcano. Soufrières Hills Volcano, which erupted in 1995 and knocked off half of Montserrat. So half of Montserrat just slid away. People were killed. It was quite a devastation of the island. And when you land, you can see what looks like a complete slip of one side of the island. Anyway, it still has a lot of volcanic eruptions. It's quite a serious island. But that island's, again, I thought it was curious to me. I didn't have any cricket contacts there. None. No cricket contact. The story gets better. I haven't quite finished it. So I go to this island, Montserrat. I land at the airport. There's one taxi. There's one security guard. I get off. A couple of young people get off. I'm the only on the plane. Sunday morning, early, very early, like 7 a.m. The security guard says to me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I've come to see the island, maybe have a bit of a tourist day." He goes, "Mate, everything's closed. It's a Sunday. You idiot. What are you doing here?" And I felt really bad. I thought, "Oh my God, I've wasted my time." Not wasting my time, but nothing was going to happen. So I got into the one taxi, just one. And this guy called Rubens, I remember his name, Rubens Furlong was his name. Anyway, Rubens got me in the car and he's like, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I don't know, you tell me. What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm into cricket. I'm running tours, blah, blah, blah." "You love cricket, do you? Okay, let's go somewhere." So he just drives me off to this person's house. I don't know, where are we going? So we're there and we knock on a door. This guy's half asleep. He's obviously had a late night. He's very hungover. His name was Gregory Willock. So Gregory Willock is there. Nice chap. And this taxi driver called Rubens just introduced me to Gregory Willock. I haven't got a clue who Gregory Willock is. Never heard of him. He happened to be the president of the Montserrat Cricket Club.
Oh,
That was rather nice. He didn't quite know what he was doing. He's pretty tired. He sat me down and he started to talk about a fellow called Reg Pereira. Now, Reg Pereira is a legendary author and commentator in the West Indies. He talked about him. He said, well, I'm actually working with him. I'm also a cricket commentator and I'm president of the cricket club. And, you know, I'm into cricket. So, oh, great. So we had a good talk. I told him about my experience 5 minutes earlier from the previous days, and he was quite impressed. So he said, oh, Norman, what are you going to do today? So I've got nothing. Or maybe we'll go and have a look around at Montserrat. I don't know. Well, okay, you take an hour with the taxi driver. He'll take you around. But after that, meet me at a certain cricket ground and we'll get you to be involved. I said, involved? Doing what? Well, I'm a cricket commentator and you obviously can speak pretty well. So why don't you join us and be a fellow cricket commentator? I said, sure, but who's playing? So these are two of the main, it's a big deal game in Montserrat. He's a commentator. So anyway, before that I went to a place, it was George Martin, who was the producer of the Beatles. He lives in Montserrat. I went to his place. I didn't meet him, of course, but I went to his place. And this taxi driver took me. And another guy, what was his name? It was a singer called Arrow Castle. Arrow Castle, does that ring a bell? His famous song was, he said, feeling hot, hot, hot.
Oh, I love that song.
Well, that's his song. He lives in Montserrat as well. So I had a few quirky things, right? So anyway, I'm taken to, by the same taxi driver, which I've invited. He's going to spend the whole day with me. I'm going to pay for whatever he wants. Get out and come with me to the game, whatever. So he takes me to the cricket ground and we're meeting there's a cricket umpire. What was his name? A cricket umpire there called, I'm remembering all these names because it's Basil Morgan, a lovely distinguished cricket umpire. Met him through Rubens. Everybody knows each other. And I then see, of course, our friend Gregory Willock again. Gregory Willock was there. He walks me into a commentary room, hands me a mic and says, this is your fellow commentator and me. You're going to be commentating on the game in front of you. I said, okay. Well, where does it get commentated to? All over the island, all over the national radio. I said, okay, sure. I didn't know any of the cricket players, so I had to learn their names pretty quickly, and off we went. The game started. I'm there trying to, get involved and everything. And I'm on the mic and talking and enjoying myself because I love talking, as you can see. Anyway, these two really tall gentlemen come in the back of the commentary box and sit down, and they're smiling at me, and I'm just continuing on. And then a break happens, and I turn around and meet these two gentlemen. The first one is, it just never stops. So the first one was the Minister of Sports, and his name was Colin Riley.
Oh.
And the person he was with was the Honourable Chief Minister, like the Prime Minister, Reuben T. Mead. Those two gentlemen were driving around the island in their car for whatever reason. They were listening to the cricket, and they heard this guy called Norman Kochannek is commentating on their island.
So they had to come take a look.
And they came and had a look. They thought, we're going to find out who this guy is. So they come and met me. And I just couldn't believe the ridiculous. Can you believe this? How incredible that is?
Amazing.
So it is, it was just amazing. So I'm there, and I let one of the ministers join in, and we talked. We had a drink after the game. We got along like a house on fire. I had the most amazing day.
It's magical. You're having a lot of adventures.
But I mean, it doesn't matter what sport it is. It's cricket, of course, here. To be able to, by the love of cricket and to meet people, I met all these people. I'm on their radio. I'm doing commentary on their national radio. The minister turning up wanting to know who I was. It was just mind-boggling. I was only there for the day. Got there in the morning. Late in the afternoon, early evening, I took a plane back to Antigua.
Yep.
And of course, I had a great story to tell Shipwreck when I got back.
I'm sure.
He laughed his head off because I didn't know anybody. I did not know a single bloody soul. So from one day, I just met all these people. Anyway, that's how the story developed. Do you find that interesting?
Extremely interesting. So I've traveled by myself all around the world, and when you do that, you have a lot of freedom because you can go anywhere, you can do anything. There's nobody that is holding you back. You just go with the flow. You're present, and I'm very present when I travel, even more so than when I'm at home here doing my thing. So, when I travel, a lot of magic happens, and I'm hearing your stories, and I think you're also attracting a lot of magic and having a lot of serendipity, I would say, on your trip. But this is just like the who's who, and you don't know them, and you somehow get connected to all of them, is quite, it's remarkable. It's like doesn't happen to many people.
And then I got back to Antigua and I told Shipwreck the story. Shipwreck was, pretty interested. He was quite shocked.
No, did he know did he know all of these people?
He knew them, but he had no idea what was going to happen. No one planned that, because I've woken up this Gregory Willock from his bed.
Yeah.
And it was just because I mentioned the word cricket and I'm from Australia. And they try to do things for you. That worked. Anyway, and then got back to Antigua. And then I think it was the next day, I went to, again, Shipwreck took me to the Antigua Recreational Ground. There was also another ground. We went to the Sir Vivian Richards cricket ground, the Falmouth cricket ground, and Sticky Wicket. They're all different grounds we went to visit. There was a game, a state-level game happening at Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. That was a brand new stadium. It was magnificent. Falmouth was more casual.
Mm-hmm.
We went to a fish market, did all these things. But anyway, then we went to the Antigua Recreational Ground. Now, that ground is extremely famous. Oops, we lost Preity. I don't know what happened to her. Maybe her battery's gone. I reckon her battery's gone. There's a good chance her battery's gone. Guys, we'll continue this now. Hang on. There, she's back. She'll be here in a second. Anyway, guys, while I've lost Preity for a moment, I've just talked to you about how I returned to Antigua. In Antigua itself, I went back with Shipwreck. He took me to the Antigua Recreational Ground. Now, that ground is very famous. It's where Viv Richards played many major matches. There's an actual stand called the Annie Roberts stand there, named after Annie Roberts. Of course, he was the first West Indian to play for Antigua. Other greats that played there were Curtly Ambrose. We had, of course, Winston Benjamin, Dave Joseph, Ridley Jacobs. They were all Sir Richard Richardson. They all came from Antigua and played at that ground. That was like their main cricketing ground of all things. It was quite an impressive ground indeed, and it held a lot of regard in terms of the history of cricket for Antigua. Unfortunately, Antigua Recreational Ground ended up becoming quite rickety, and the fences were old and the stands were quite ordinary. And then we ended up having Sir Vivian Richards Stadium take over. You're back, Preity.
Yeah.
Everything all right?
Well, I'm having internet connections. I'm using, I think my data, which is not very strong. So I hope it doesn't cut out again, but I apologize if it does, because the Wi-Fi in my apartment is it's disconnected. So I just hope that we have a fair conversation for the rest of the, our episode. I apologize.
That's right. So I was just talking about coming back to Antigua, going into the Antigua Recreational Ground, the history of that ground, no longer being used because its wooden railings were falling down. There was splinters coming out. It was in a horrible state. It felt like a ghost town, to be honest. That's how it felt. Anyway, the ghost town of St. Lucia, of Antigua was there. But what we did do is we went to a beef jerky stand. It was a lovely old lady sitting there with her beef jerky. She was actually cooking it and making it for the group. And I had the likes of Annie Roberts, Richard Richardson, more so Mervyn Richards, Shipwreck, and along came Winston Benjamin. And we all ate and had something to drink and spent time at the lunchtime at the Antigua Recreational Ground. And every day, whenever these guys are available, they go there naturally. They're not wanting a specific audience. They come there to meet and have lunch, which is an amazing story. The reality is that particular lunch is very special. I had the pleasure of being there, getting autographs, having a chat, talking about cricket with the likes of Annie Roberts, and obviously Mervyn Richards, Viv's brother, Shipwreck, and then Winston Benjamin. And the other main person was Curtly Ambrose. So Curtly took me on a tour of the stadium, so did Andy, and Andy would show, well, that's my stand. And then Curtly would show an actual honours board where he took 5 wickets and took his wickets. And that was very special to have the gentlemen involved physically show me to their stands and their boards where their names were in glory. Again, they don't play cricket there anymore, but it is virtually a museum in its natural state. And there's no doubt about it. It'd be worth visiting if you ever get a chance to go to Antigua. That's in St. John's, the ARG, which is the Antigua Recreational Ground. So good old Shipwreck took me around again. We went back to the Hotel Jolly Beach, said goodbye to those people. We spent some more time, met his family. I met his wife, as I told you earlier. I met his wife, Denise, and his two daughters. His two daughters, both Sherika and Chanel. I met them as well. I'm just getting Preity up on the board. All right. I've been talking my head off. I've just been talking about Preity. I've been talking about Shipwreck's wife, Denise, and his two daughters,
Okay.
both Sherrick and Chanel, and about the situation with what was happening in Antigua. I went to the Antigua Recreational, and beef jerky at lunchtime, and all the cricketers would go there as a regular daily thing at lunchtime. They would go there and spend time having this beef jerky. Okay?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm
still backstage. You need to let me in.
Okay. All right. So I'll continue. You right? Yeah. So we spent time at Antigua Recreational Ground. We had the beef jerky there to see the special stand, having Curtly Ambrose take me around to the boards where he took his 5 wickets to where the likes of Andy Roberts would have his stand, and ultimately Viv would have a stand. It was a great ground indeed. So I had a great time there, reminiscing with guys, almost like a. How are your eyes? You're closing your eyes. Pretty, you okay?
No, I'm fine, but I'm still backstage. You have to let me into the room.
I know, but you're here now. You've been here for a while.
I think I'm still backstage. It doesn't say that I'm.
No, you're not. You're on screen.
I have my wife.
No, you're definitely here. No. Anyway, all right, guys, we'll continue. It's unfortunate about
Here. Okay, I'm back now.
You were always there, though, Preity. Okay.
Oh, okay, so that's good. I apologize.
Antigua,
I'm using my Wi-Fi. I can't believe this.
Okay. Oh. All right, so we've been there in Antigua. We then leave, or at least I leave Antigua, say goodbye to Curtly Ambrose, and obviously Winston Benjamin, and all the people, and Shipwreck takes from the airport. I then make my way to the airport and heading off to St. Lucia. And St. Lucia, we were there, and I arrived in a small plane, only a handful of people. I get a phone call from Shipwreck when I land saying, "Thank you, Norm, for coming." I thanked him. He said, "Wait to the next plane. Wait to the next plane." You're on screen, Preity. I can see. Can you see me?
All right. I can't see you for some reason, but I can hear you.
But I can see you. I can see everything you're doing. So everyone can see you on screen.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we have a situation there where then we are able to go to St. Lucia. We then spend time. He tells me to wait for the next plane. I don't know why. I'm waiting for the next plane to turn up. And the next plane arrives. And the next plane arrives, and we're actually in Antigua. So we've left Antigua, we're in St. Lucia, and then a bat comes into the actual carousel, and we're able to then be able to get it, and it's a bat signed by Sir Vivian Richards from me, and I thought it was very, very nice touch from Shipwreck to be able to do that. In fact, I'm trying to get. Okay.
I'm here.
All right.
Okay, I can see you now, finally.
I've
but you're
been there the
frozen.
whole time. I've been there the whole time. So, all right. So we're in St. Lucia, and I then go to the next group of people. They take me around. Quite an incredible feeling there. It's equally as warm and lovely as Antigua. A guy called Roland Cox takes me around, and a guy called Brian Calix. There, they helped me around St. Lucia. Now, I've had a great experience in Antigua, of course, and you've got to be able to imagine that I've been given such a great time. You are basically, it's a very very lovely situation to be taken around. What Roland Cox does is even more amazing. He actually he takes me around, and we go to this particular office. It's the tourism office of St. Lucia, and St. Lucia have actually allowed us to talk about possible tours. Now, it was fantastic. Brian Calix and the likes of Roland Cox were there, and they were talking to me, and casually we're talking to them about the whole situation. And the whole situation is there, and it's been amazing. We had a great time, and we just couldn't believe it. Then I was videoed by Brian Calix. I'm sitting in Roland Cox's lounge room, and lo and behold, quite amazingly, my little video of Melody Today is broadcast on national television in St. Lucia, talking about my presence. But I just couldn't believe the way things developed. I had an incredible time, and ultimately, the way that happened in St. Lucia was quite incredible. They gave me the full attention of the whole thing. Was quite, I was quite lucky that I had that coverage. Okay, so Preitty's connection is terrible. She keeps cutting in and out, so I've got to basically give up on that. So in St. Lucia, I had a wonderful time. Looked at the grounds there. They have a ground called Barbados Stadium, which became eventually Darren Sammy Stadium, which they've had World Cups on. I got a tour of that ground. We went then around to other grounds, one called Mindu Phillip, named after a very famous local St. Lucian, and had the opportunity then to go around the ground there. Then ultimately, I flew to Barbados. Now, in Barbados, I've had such a great experience, and I Preity, we can see you when you're closing your eyes. I don't know whether you can see what you're doing, but we can see you every time you're on the screen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can't see it. The screen is just black, but I can hear you. So go on.
I'm here. My vision is perfectly clear. So you've got something wrong with your connection, I think. Okay, so in Barbados, we went to Barbados, and we actually had a situation there where we basically landed, and I met up with a guy called Gregory Willock, who once played for Barbados. Of course, Barbados is its own country, and it was quite incredible the way that he took me around. He took me to several places, including the very famous Kensington Oval, which is where they play a lot of their major matches in Barbados. Took me to a ground called the 3Ws, which is right next to the university there in Barbados, and it has a particular ground there, which the 3Ws stands for, which is quite incredible. The fact is, it's one of the most picturesque locations, and the 3W stands for Worrell, Wicks, and Walcott, the 3Ws. Very famous ground. Of course, Barbados produced such greats as Gordon Greenwich. Obviously, they had a range of players. Sir Garfield Sobers, Wes Hall. Barbados, one of the mainstay grounds of the whole place. It's one of the most amazing places you've ever seen. And Preitty's screen's still not clear. She's on, but she's off. Something really wrong here with her screen. Anyway, we then we have breakfast at the Hilton Hotel, and I'm meeting up with Sir Wes Hall. It's actually not Sir Wes Hall, it's Reverend Wes Hall. He is a pastor in the Barbados, an amazing man, played in the Tide Test along with Sir Garfield Sobers, and we'll find out later Lance Gibbs. They all played in that particular Tide Test with Richie Benno, Alan Davison in Brisbane at the Gabba. An amazing time. That was the time when I was there, of the 50th anniversary of the Tide Test, and we talked about that at length, which was very, very privileged. Hooray, we've got you back. I've tried several times, and you always... Can you see me?
Yeah, my Wi-Fi is so bad. It just keeps dying every few minutes.
Okay. So we'll try and survive then with it. We'll see how we go. So I'm there in Barbados, having met the likes of Sir Garfield Sobers, Wes Hall, and another fellow who was particularly important was not only Gregory Willock, which I mentioned to you. There was also another fellow who was actually a former Olympian who actually showed me around as well. They were magnificent. They took me to Kensington Oval, to the museum. The museum at Kensington Oval in Barbados is sensational. It has the most beautiful history of the West Indies. A number of these stars, like the Walcotts, the Weeks, the Everton Weeks, that is the Walcotts, the whole range of players, like Frank Worrell, of course, the Frank Worrell Trophy, a very famous trophy that Australia played. they're all based there. Obviously, more currently, Joel Garner from there as well. It was amazing to meet a lot of these people at that time and be taken out. But my biggest pleasure was meeting Reverend Wes Hall and ultimately Garfield Sobers. That was a privilege and an honour to meet those children, as they're well in their 80s now, and that was at that time around they were in their 70s. It was quite an amazing trip. Heading back from Barbados, we went on back to Florida on my way home to where my wife was living or staying in Kissimmee in Orlando, Florida. But I decided to spend some time in Miami with another friend of mine, and we went down there and I relayed the story to them, and they then took me to the Fort Lauderdale ground, which is a very famous ground in Miami. It's actually probably the most famous cricket ground in America. A lot of international matches have been played there in Fort Lauderdale, such as New Zealand played Sri Lanka, the West Indies have played Sri Lanka and New Zealand, and I think Jeff Crow, his brother Martin Crow, was actually there. He actually has responsibility for that area and has the responsibility. And Preitty's like, you're on screen, Preity. Like, we can see you. Are you there?
Okay, I'm here. I'm listening, but it's just a black screen.
The screen is frozen on your face for some reason. It's only moving a little bit. So just see if we can hang in there. So we went from Barbados back to Florida. We then spent time in Florida, and then I had the opportunity to go into the Fort Lauderdale grounds. Then was taken on a tour by many of the local people. Many of them were Indian, and they were very keen to show me around the areas around Fort Lauderdale, which was magnificent. Fantastic stadium. As I said, Jeff Crow, the ex-New Zealander, was also there as well. We then spent a lot of time with him, and then we ultimately got the opportunity to go and visit a home in Miami of none other than Lance Gibbs. And Lance Gibbs took me in and talked to me about his experiences with world cricket, of course, being the leading wicket taker of taking on 309 wickets, I believe it was. He was the record holder at the time. He took a hat trick. He was also part of the so-called tied tests, where you had, of course, the likes of Sobers, Hall, Benno, Davison in the match, and Lance Gibbs was actually 12th man in that match. And he told me about the experience that he had, which was quite amazing. So there we are, guys. That was my trip. I'm sorry if I bored you. I hope I haven't, because there's a lot of great photographs that I will actually upload after this talk. I thought I'd first talk to you about it, and then when I can show you the photos of the way the trip went and the amazing people we've got. So what we're going to be doing, this is a preliminary discussion with my experience there. What I'll be doing in the future is actually interviewing a number of the cricketers, such as Merv Richards, which we've already done, a number of the people that I've talked to you about in this discussion today. We'll get one-on-ones with them. We'll Zoom them or Skype them or StreamYard them in their locations and be able to talk to them and get their experiences of cricket. And I'm very fortunate to know these guys, have had contact with them personally through that amazing 2010 experience. I couldn't have thought of a better time to have. It was quite amazing. And Preitty's back, and can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm so sorry. I just keep going in and out. It kicks me out every minute because my high-speed data is dead.
We're almost finished now, so we might get to say goodbye. I'm basically going to finish up now. I've just given people a discussion about Antigua, Montserrat, then obviously St. Lucia, and a lot about Barbados. And then those discussions we've been able to provide with a lot of detail. And yes, and officials say, yeah, Preitty's having problems with their internet connection, which is not the end of the world. We'll live with that for the moment. But I've been able to give you an update as to what's happened with my trip in 2010. We'll continue with that now into 2021 with a lot more interesting discussions and they're listed on the actual video. I've listed a lot of the people's names: Vivian Richards, Andy Roberts, Curtly Ambrose, Richard Richardson. You've got Dave Joseph, Ridley Jacobs, Winston Benjamin. Hopefully all those people, I'm not sure whether Gravy's alive or not. I can't confirm that. Darren Sammy, Wes Hall, and Garfield Sobers. Some amazing people in the West Indies. And obviously Viv Richards being one of the standouts through the likes of Merv, his brother, who's been fantastic already. We were on the show, Preity and I were on the show called Antigua Parish League, which is a cricket competition there, and they bring on greats onto that. And we were on last week with Mervyn Richards, and we're on next week with Viv, and we hope to bring those people to this platform so you can all share the discussions I've had with you. Even Shipwreck I'll try to bring on. So not only I'm telling you the preliminary situation I experienced, but I'm also able to share with you the locations and future tourism of the West Indies and engage from countries like India where you play cross tournaments, because the West Indies will be a great place to visit great standard of cricket and great people, to say the least. Let's just see if we've got Preity online.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So we've pretty much finished now. So I've gone through what I've talked about. I've begun on the process of those islands, the people that are there, how I met them, the connections we've got, the future of that when we talk to them one-on-one live in future episodes. So thank you very much, everyone. Preity, I know you've had difficulty with your line, but stay online. I'll talk to you shortly. So this is Norman Kochannek from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochannek. I thank you for your time. Namaste, Preity. She's going in and out like no tomorrow, and we'll talk very soon again. So this is Norman Kochannek and Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochannek. Again, view, like, and share your the posts. Please make sure that you share. This hasn't gone technically perfectly today, but I hope you like the verbal contact I've been able to provide you. I'll provide you a lot of photography of my trip, and ultimately we'll be able to meet these people and get to connect with them through conversations on this channel. And again, Viv Richards, can you imagine going in his lounge room? We have basically done that with Merv already, his brother. So thank you very much for your time, and see you soon.